Okay, we're rolling.
This is an interview at the New York State Military Museum, Saratoga Springs, New York. It is the 17th of August, 2005, approximately 2:45 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Francis S. Currey, June 29, 1925, Loch, Sheldrake, New York.
What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Hurleyville High School, graduated 1943 high school.
Do you remember where you were and any reaction that you had when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I was in my third year of high school, as I recall, yes. And like everyone else, I was shocked.
How did you hear about it? Do you recall?
Over the radio.
Okay.
We did not have television at that
Right.
time.
Okay. Did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
Why did you enlist and why did you select the Army?
Well, at that time, they had a special class coming up, and they give a nationwide examination. They were selecting 1,000 for this special class at Fort Benning, Georgia, the infantry school. I qualified for that, but the thing was you had to get in the Army actively before your 18th birthday, otherwise you were subject to the draft. That was why. So I qualified for that school.
Okay. Could you tell us about where the school, well, you told us you went there, and could you tell us about it, please, your experience?
Well, it was the infantry school, which is actually the officer candidate school of the Army, and it was this special class they wanted to try to see if they could take them right from high school into the military without their basic training. So in effect, I had my basic training right at the infantry school.
Was it similar to basic training everyone else received? Or?
It was much better, let's put it that way, because by the time I got out of there, at the end of the 90 days, or whatever, it was better than 90, about 120 days, I could handle any weapon the Army had. Whereas the infantry replacement program, usually it was just qualified them with the M1 rifle. That was about it.
So you were trained on all the weapons?
I trained right with the officer candidates, correct.
Okay, after the 120 days, where did you go from there?
Okay, at that time they told me I was too immature for a commission, so they gave me Army gave me a little sales talk, and they sent me to the engineers. That was fine because they told me, the war would be over soon, and the world would have to be rebuilt. What a great advantage for engineers. So I went direct from Fort Benning to Cornell University, I think in New York. That would have been about December of 1944, or 43. And then come the spring, I did one semester there. They were getting ready to pull the invasion in Europe. So one day we had a colonel in charge of the ROTC unit at Cornell, called me in and said, he said, "You've had infantry training, we need infantry in, out you go."
So where did you go from there then?
Okay, I'm in a nice bunk in Cornell University one night. A week later, I'm out in the woods in Louisiana on maneuvers with the 75th Division.
Okay. How long were you there?
I think we maybe a couple months on with the 75th, and then from there we went up to Camp Breckenridge, Kentucky, and I served with the 75th until I shipped overseas.
When did you go overseas?
Well, I was scheduled to go overseas in May of '44. At that time, the ship went down with the 5 Sullivan brothers,
Oh, yes.
and President Roosevelt, Franklin D. at that time was president, signed an executive order that you couldn't ship out to overseas till you're 19 years old. Well, I wasn't 19 yet, I was still 18, so they had to hold me back for 2 months otherwise I might have made the invasion.
Now, when did you eventually go over then?
I shipped in July of '44, and I had my first combat in September '44 with the 30th Infantry Division.
Now, how did you go overseas?
with a troop ship. It was a British ship, the Mauritania, a big, which in, I believe in peacetime was a big luxury vessel. And we did not go in convoy
So
because,
usually the liners went in single ship.
yeah, because no submarine couldn't overtake them because they went that fast.
Okay. So you went in as a replacement then?
As a replacement, correct.
Where did you get placed into a unit? When you hit England or?
Well, actually, you're in a replacement depot. I don't know at what point where they singled you out unless you're at over in the continent. But I know I was scheduled for the 30th, but they had broken out of the hedgerows at that time, and I did not catch them till they got up to the Netherlands. So really, I went through Europe up at that time almost like a tourist.
Now, the 30th was out of the Carolinas and Tennessee. How were you accepted as a Yankee?
Well, they had been so decimated in the invasion and all that they were very happy to get the bodies. In fact, this whole squad, we went in intact as a squad through the replacement system.
Oh, so you went in as a unit?
Group.
Okay.
We had met during the system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So your first combat ended up in September of '44. Could you tell us about that, your first experience?
First experience that I can remember was I was only with them a couple days, and we're up on a place called Crucifix Hill outside of Aachen, Germany. Green as grass, and we were dug in. We replaced a platoon in rotation, and we took over a foxhole behind a hedge. As I recall, that night, that just watching through this hedge, and a flare went off, and out in front of me I could see a German patrol. And I was so scared that I couldn't get my rifle up. So by the time the flare went on, I got my rifle. And people think of warfare as quiet. The front at night is just as quiet as a graveyard. And I fired, which I shouldn't have done. I heard about that the next day.
Now, what was your rank at this time?
PFC.
Okay. How did you feel about the officers around you at that time or any other time?
Okay,
How did you feel about them in general?
The company commander I had received a DSC for Mortain. He was a great guy. But if you ever watched the MASH program, and they had this Frank Burns, no matter where you went in the Army, you're always bound to bump into a Frank Burns.
Okay. All right. Now, you told me you were in how many days of almost consecutive combat?
9 months.
9 months, okay. What was it like, basically, day to day?
One day just like any other. They shoot at you, you shoot at them. That's it.
Did you suffer heavy casualties?
During the Bulge, we went up with a full company of 250 plus men. We came out with something like 48 men and had received replacements in the line, and that was 6 weeks. But that was the only time in Europe that two armies stood toe-to-toe 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and slugged it out every day.
Now, by the time of the Bulge, did you have much winter gear at all?
None.
Not even boots or anything?
No,
You just
no.
had your...
Just the regular ODs and jacket and shoot.
Now, by that time, were you a sergeant?
No, I was a PFC at that time.
Okay. Now, when did you become a platoon leader? You said you became a platoon leader?
About 6 weeks later.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the Bulge and...
Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons I live in South Carolina. I've hated snow ever since.
Really?
Did you suffer from frostbite?
Yeah, my feet are very badly frozen.
Now, your unit basically was sent to Malmedy, correct?
That's correct.
When did you reach there?
Oh, probably around the 17th, 18th of December, something like that.
Were you ever aware the massacre took place around the 17th? Were you ever aware of that?
No, but my unit was the one that uncovered it. We had picked up that they had some that got away from that massacre. and we were picking them up. They were coming through the lines, but right away, headquarters was grabbing them before we had a chance much to talk to them. We knew something was wrong up there, but we didn't know what until we uncovered it, and then we knew what it was.
About the same time the Germans were starting to kill civilians, you were not aware of that either?
No.
Or, okay. Now, in the combat you had in that area, you were against the 150th Panzer unit, which was a special unit. Did you ever see any of the Germans in American uniforms or American equipment, or?
Yes, they had some American, not with the uniform, so we didn't have any of that in our sector. But they had painted their lead tank like an American to make it look like a Sherman. That's why in our first dispatch, as I said, the first tank I knocked out was an American Sherman. Actually, it was a German Panther that was painted to look like a Sherman.
Did it have U.S. Army markings on
Yes,
it too?
yeah, they put the star and all that.
Okay, could you tell us about what happened on the 21st then? I believe that's when you received your citation.
Well, actually, that is just one day out of 9 months, but the best part of that citation is what they didn't put down. You know, it looks like that happened just in a few hours, but it was really a period of about 24 hours. They have to compress it.
Okay,
but
would you tell us about that then?
Okay, now, if you ever watched MASH, you saw the Jeep with the 2 stretcher mounts on it where they ran out. Well, that factory that they mentioned there that we would do was a U.S. Army hospital that had bugged out the day before. Well, that night, as it got dark, there were 6 of us left, and we decided, hey, we had two badly wounded, and one of them was from our own squad, and we weren't going to leave them behind, and what were we going to do? So we found this Jeep with a double mount on it. So fortunately, one of us guys, I think of the 6 of us, the oldest one was about 21 years old, and one of them could drive a standard transmission. So it kind of just fell to me, because I'd had some experience with leadership, that we decided what we were going to do. At that time, I was a Browning automatic rifleman. So we decided that the one guy would drive, we'd put the 2 stretchers on, and the 4 guys would hold on the stretcher, and I would ride shotgun on them Jeeps had a spare wheel on the back. I'd ride shotgun, and then if we were stopped by the Germans, I would hop off and cover, and they would take off. We had that all planned out. Well, we went out from there and passed a burning German tank that we'd knocked out, and went right past the German roadblock, never challenged. Here we are, 6 guys, young Americans, out in the wilderness of Belgium. But what we didn't know, we were on the main road to Frankerchamps, which was the one that the Germans had wanted. And finally we kept going, and we ran into another one of our regiments. Well, here we got a problem. We're coming from the German side. So they challenged us and back and forth, so they finally let us in. The first thing they did, they took our weapons, and then they took our 2 wounded in our Jeep. And they were not too friendly. In fact, at a point, as I told one guy, will you please point that thing in another direction? And so we went to their headquarters, and they kept pushing us echelon to echelon, and we're telling our story. Nobody's believing us. But finally, the next day, they got us straightened out, and we got back to our own unit.
So they suspected you as being a German?
Always that possibility, because then it was the rumor, you know, that they were in, in American uniforms and all.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, could you go into detail on what happened on the 21st of December?
Well, that's about it.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the citation there that by the end of the day, all day long, I got credit for taking out 4 German tanks and killing some of the German infantry, and rescuing the 2 men that were. Oh, one of the things here in the citation says that the 5 that were surrounded, there was an anti-tank outfit out in front of us, and they had been overrun by these here, but 5 of them fellows were able to get in foxholes out of sight. and they were faced with 3 German tanks, and I managed to get out there where they were determined that we had to get rid of them tanks before they could get out. So with their half track, I got some German or some American anti-tank grenades to take care of the tanks.
While you were doing this, did you just do this automatically, or what went through your mind? Do you recall?
No, just I was 19 years old.
Okay.
I think that would cover.
All right. Now, after this date, then you basically were in combat for another 4 or 5 months.
5 months.
5 months. Were you ever aware that you were put in for a citation?
About in March, well, first of all, and right after that, Hal Boyle, who was a correspondent for the, I think it was International News at the time, wrote off in January sometime. It was in New York Daily News that I'd had, the action there, but nothing about a medal or anything. About in March, somebody told me that I'd been put in for it, but that was just that you were recommended for it, nothing definite.
Now, was it your company commander that had recommended you? Or?
Yeah, yes.
So basically, then you just fought in the lines for the next several months.
Yeah, yes.
Does anything stand out more than others in that time, or is it just day to day?
After a while, after you get a few months of combat, one day just runs into the other.
What about casualties? Did you still continue to suffer heavy casualties?
My platoon, believe it or not, had the fewest casualties. That's one thing that I admire General Patton for. His frontline troops had, because I was young, and my platoon was young, we were always in the lead. All we had to worry about was small arms fire. The ones coming up behind us had to worry about artillery. The artillery was going over our heads, and like mortar fire, and I wasn't getting the casualties that the others were.
How did you feel about Patton as a general?
Well, at that time, I had no opinion. Today, I agree with a lot of his philosophy. I don't use his language.
Okay.
Now, what did you think of the BAR? Was that your favorite weapon?
Even as a platoon leader, I still carried the BAR. Yeah.
What were the things you liked about it?
The weight didn't jump like the German Schmeiser. I like that rapid fire. I like the firepower, period. In fact, one time it saved me in a little town called Thiermont in January of '45. We ran up against the Hermann Göring Paratroop Division, and they were all young, and they all had automatic weapons, mostly Schmeisers, and the Schmeiser would jump. And I went in this one house. Well, actually, I got a Silver Star for taking out the regimental command post of the Hermann Göring Paratroop Division. And this young German paratrooper was on a stairway, and he fired at me as I came in. And his gun jumped, and it hit his first shot hit my helmet, and I had the Browning, and my Browning would hold steady. And that was one of the reasons I liked it.
Now, as a BAR man, did that make you more of a target than the rest of your platoon, do you think?
Not really. No, I didn't think so.
You ended up going all the way through Germany then?
We met the Russians at Magdeburg in May '45.
Do you have any feelings about the Russians themselves when you met them? Or?
Strangely enough, at first they were very friendly, and I don't think we would have had a problem. But then officially, after a couple of days, they separated us, and that was it.
Did you ever liberate any of the concentration camps at all?
Yes.
Were you aware of them prior to that?
No. In fact, the first couple up in northern Germany that we liberated, we knew something was wrong, but not what. But what happened was that headquarters knew about it. Some of them. We would take a small, they were all small camps. We would take the camp, round up the guards, and right away AMG, I know that was right behind us, and they'd get us out of there, and they'd take over, which was wise because there's a lot of disease and stuff down in them camps. In fact, at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., one of the camps we took, I knew something was wrong. I took a whip out of a guard's office, out of a rack, and it's like a cat of nine tails. It still had the goop on it where they were beating the prisoner. And that's, eventually when I moved from up north to South Carolina, I donated that to the Holocaust Museum. And they have it in a, its own little, what would you call it, a display case with it, that this was captured by Sergeant Francis Currey, 30th Infantry Division. And that was in April of '45.
Now, you had mentioned at lunch about being a platoon leader and only being a sergeant. Could you talk about that again?
Yeah. Well, what happened, three of us were put in for commissions right after the Bulge, and were promoted up. And I had never wanted to be a platoon. I always wanted to be a platoon sergeant, because you had still enlisted man status, but the responsibility. So now they said you're going to be a platoon leader. So one of the fellows, one of us three, was killed on the Roar River crossing in February of '45. So the other guy said he didn't want no part of it. He didn't want the commission, nothing. And he suggested that I not too. He said it's a damn jinx. Well, by that time I was pretty well known in my division, you know, was the story. And he was a staff sergeant. I had already been promoted to a tech sergeant. So I told him no, I didn't want no part of the other. So they said, okay, that's fine, but you're going to be a platoon leader anyway. I think I was the only tech sergeant platoon leader in the division. So then when I became platoon leader, I had this other guy. I said I'd like him to be my platoon sergeant. He refused it. He didn't want no part of it. So I made him my platoon guide. Then he's still a staff sergeant. And we went through the war together. He came out clean, both of us.
Do you recall where you were and any reaction you had about the death of Roosevelt?
Okay, we're up in Germany. Yeah, I recall that well. That we had just taken this small town, and by that time we were moving pretty fast. It was towards the wars, and the German civilians told us about it. First we did what? We thought it was propaganda, but it wasn't. They knew about it before we did.
So you ended in Germany meeting the Russians, and that's how the war ended for you?
At Magdeburg up on the Elbe River. That was the end.
Okay. When exactly did you receive your Congressional Medal of Honor?
That was in August 1945, just before we left Europe.
Oh, so you were in Europe when you received it?
Oh, yeah. As you can see by the photo there, I was just out of the line, and I needed a haircut badly.
Now, when you received the Medal of Honor, did they offer you a commission at all after that?
No, that was it.
Okay.
But if they had, I would have turned it down anyway. But the war was over for me.
When did you return home?
That was in August '45.
Did you have a lot of celebrations when you returned back home, or?
Oh, they had a big, parade and all that.
Okay. When were you discharged?
Well, I had a gunshot wound that wasn't healing properly.
Oh, when were you wounded? I guess we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, I had 3 of them. But so I stayed in for a few months. I came back with the division down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and they disbanded the division and went back to South Carolina National Guard status. So I was transferred up to Fort J in the New York Harbor to finish out what time I wanted.
Now, how were you wounded? What kind of wound did you have?
That one, the one that wasn't healing, was after the war. What they did, they transferred us down to Bavaria, and there was a whole German army down there. I had not seen combat. We were disarming them, and with a little fluke with some Germans, I picked up my 3rd wound, my last one. They caught me right in the knee. So that that finished me up.
So you had 3 Purple Hearts then?
Yeah, I have 3 Purple Hearts.
Okay.
And what about the other 2? Were they gunshot wounds or shrapnel
yeah.
wounds?
Well, that day I was telling you about the serum on it, I got one. You can still see the nice little round hole there. And I went right through the rifle bullet. And it was funny, because we're in the combat, I couldn't do anything about it. So after we sewed the Thermon up in a couple of days, I showed it to my company commander, and they said, yeah, you better go and have them take a look at it. So I went into an aid station. The medic took a look at it. He said, gee, he said, that's a nice clean one. Band-aid, Band-aid, back you go. I thought I was going to go home.
What about the second one?
That was the first one. I got that. I got a just glazed along the eye up in Malmedy. A piece of shrapnel.
Okay. After you discharged, did you make use of the GI Bill at all?
No. I was offered. I had met General Omar Bradley in D.C. and he at that time had become head of the Veterans. So he asked me if I'd like a job with the Veterans Administration. And at that time, well, I hadn't made any plans. I had been planning really to go back to school, and I said, yeah, I'd give it a try. It's one of the smartest moves I made. Because I was right there in the New York Harbor, and he arranged for me to go up to the VA headquarters in New York City, and they grabbed me right off the bat.
Did you ever make use of the 5220 Club?
No.
Okay. How about veterans organizations and any organizations that you joined?
Oh, I belong to the RAF, like the VFW, the American Legion. Oh, yeah.
How about the Purple Heart,
Military Order of the Purple Heart, yeah.
Medal of Honor
Association.
Okay.
30th Infantry Division Association. The Andrew Jackson Association in South Carolina.
Did you ever attend any reunions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I've been president of the 30th Division Association. I've been president of the Andrew Jacksons in South Carolina. Now there's a good one for you. Here I am from New York State. What am I doing? President of the Andrew Jacksons in South Carolina. Well, it happened.
I know this is going to be how do you think your time in the service and your being a recipient of the Medal of Honor has changed your life?
Oh, well, quite obviously, yes, as you can see. I go to presidential inaugurations. I can sometimes one-on-one with generals, which obviously I didn't have. They're not honoring me, they're honoring that medal, is what they're actually doing.
And you ring the bell at Wall Street.
Yeah, that I did.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your interview. Well, one other thing. How did you feel when Hasbro asked you about the G.I. Joe model?
Okay. Okay, I have a summer camp up in Lake Woodstock.
Right.
So, this is, 8, 10 years ago. We have our headquarters on Medal of Honor side is aboard the Yorktown down in Charleston Harbor. So I'm up here, I get a call. It's our director from the Yorktown saying that Hasbro, I never heard of them. They said they want this deal, and if you're interested. I said, oh, for God's sakes. Yeah, this is ridiculous. So he said, well, give it a try. So he gave me a phone number to call, and it was the head designer of Hasbro personal. And he gives me this, and I thought, oh, good. I said, will you put that in writing? He says, I'll have a contract out to you this afternoon. And from that, it just worked.
So what do you think of it?
I bet. Well, they made 100,000. I bet I've autographed half of them.
Really?
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It was an honor interviewing you. Thank you.